All right, good afternoon, everyone. It's just a little after 1 p.m. on May 26th. We're officially calling this meeting of the Ag Innovation Board to order. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded as public record, and that participation in a recorded meeting will be deemed as consent to be recorded, including statements, both written and oral. Public records, including this recording, can be requested at any time in accordance with the Vermont Public Records Act. So welcome, everyone. Thank you to those of you who are coming to present to us today. We really appreciate you spending the time to share your expertise with us. I'm going to go through first just our introductions, and I'm going to try and find our members first. So my name is Morgan Griffith. I am an AIB member in the plant industry division of the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Market. And I'm going to do our other member that's in the room is
Steve Guarnell. I'm the director of the Division of Plant Industry, and I work.
Then going down the list of people I see who have joined us online, Amanda.
Thank you. Amanda St. Pierre. I'm Executive Director of Vermont Dairy Producer Alliance and a dairy farmer in Berkshire with my husband and 2 sons.
Thanks for joining us, Amanda. Emily.
Hey everyone, Emily May, Agricultural Conservation Lead with the Pesticide Program at the Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation. I'm based in Middlebury.
Thanks, Emily. Josh.
Hello, Joshua Faulkner, Research Associate Professor with UVM Extension, and I also direct the Agricultural and Environmental Testing Lab at UVM.
Thanks, Josh. And we are officially welcoming Andrea Kirk as a AIB member today. Andrea, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Andrea Kirk. I'm a toxicologist with the Department of Health.
Thanks, Andrea. Leon?
Leon Course. I'm an organic dairy farmer in Whitingham, farming with my wife and daughter and a former dairy grazing apprentice on a farm that's been in my family for 158 years. I hold seat number 2 on the board, which is designated for an organic farmer.
Thanks, Leon. Okay, I think that's all the members that I'm seeing right this minute.
Yeah.
So let's go with other people on. Oh, here comes one last member here. Hi, Sean. We're just finishing up our AIB member introductions. If you want to jump in and introduce yourself quickly. Maybe you can't hear us yet.
Sean, can you hear us? Yeah. There you go.
Yep, I hear y'all. Did you say introduce yourself to me?
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Yep, sorry. Sean Lucas, UVM Extension, Extension Agronomist out of the Middlebury office. Excited to be here.
Thanks. We're glad to have you back.
Yeah, good to be back. Thank you.
Okay. Other people who have joined us online, Jill.
Good afternoon, Jill Goss. I'm an agricultural input specialist with the plant industry division.
Greg.
Greg Jaleski, Director of Madison County Solid Waste here in Central New York.
Thank you for joining us today. Michaela.
I'm the recycling coordinator for Madison County, New York.
Great. Thanks for joining us, Michaela. Susan.
Hi, everyone. Susan Church, procurement manager for EFS Plastics, our U.S. operation. I'm based in Dallas, Texas, and been in the recycling industry for about 18, 19 years. Nice to meet everyone.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us today. Zach?
Zach Shikowski, Agrichemical Program Manager with the Plant Industry Division of the Agency of Agriculture.
Thanks, Zach. And you just joined us, doing a quick round of introductions so we know who's on the call. Want to give a quick introduction?
Sure. This is Mike Snow. I'm with the Connecticut River Watershed Farmers Alliance.
Thanks, Mike. And then just we're getting a little bit of feedback. So if you just mute when we are presenting, that'd be great. Thank you. And then in the room we have Sylvia. Can you give an introduction?
Sylvia Knight with the Vermont Pesticide and Poison Action Network.
I'm Sylvia's partner, just observing.
Sure. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so they grab, I think I got everybody. I thought I saw Pam hop on, but maybe she didn't. All right, well, thank you all for joining us. The first thing on our agenda was just I didn't get any edits for the March minutes, so those are posted and available online along with the meeting materials for that meeting. And we are I think the only update that we have as an agency is a legislative update. So Steve is just going to walk through.
Yeah. Thanks, Morgan. Yeah, so just as an update on the legislative activity that's affecting our division, agency, relative to the activities of this board, there was a bill introduced to prohibit the sale and use of paraquat. It made it through the House, went to the Senate, got amended, and got passed by both chambers at the end of the day. So the bill is headed to the governor for signature. What the bill would do is prohibit the sale and use of paraquat for all uses except for some limited uses in apple production and some berry production, effective in November of this year. And that those uses would have to be done under a permit issued by the agency and be limited to, specific uses and have some requirements as far as training and handling by the folks who are continuing to use it. Those permits could continue for up to 3 years. So in November, 2029, I guess, would be the end of the use of paraquat. So see if the governor signs it. But it passed. I will say it passed unanimously, both of the House Ag Committee and the Senate Ag Committee. So a fair amount of support.
I will say, I think the last time we talked about it, it originally was introduced with a proponent that was charging the AIB to make a recommendation of alternatives. But
I should mention that. Yeah, so there was, in the House version, there was a requirement that the AIB take a look at alternatives to the use of paraquat for the uses that would be continue to be allowed. That was taken out in the Senate version, but the agency is committed to continue to do that. We're going to continue to come up with, do some research, and we'll certainly keep the board informed, and the board certainly welcome to weigh in, on that. So our plan right now is to work with UVM. Sean, I'll just so you know, I'm talking to Terry Bradshaw about that. I didn't reach out to you too, but because of the apple production. So we'll, if the bill gets signed, when the bill gets signed, we'll start that process moving forward. The agency also has to report annually to the committees on the use of paraquat, which we'll do. But yeah, we'll keep the board informed for sure. And if anybody has any thoughts or comments or whatever, that's what we're here for. So be glad to talk about it. So
Thank you.
I guess there's one other thing I should mention.
Yeah.
We had a proposal in there's a thing called a housekeeping bill, which the agency puts together with minor changes to various statutes. And we had put some language in there regarding reporting on seed treatment, which was intended to help us, as an agency and also the board keep track of treated seed and, what kinds of treatments and the amounts and everything. That got taken out by the Senate Ag Committee. They had some other reasons that they took it out. But anyway, it's not in the version that was passed by the Senate. It went to the House. The House has agreed to that amendment, but it's the other way around. I'm sorry. It was the Senate version that had it. The House took it out, but whatever. So the bill that's going through now doesn't have that language in it, but we're going to, in all likelihood, go ahead and propose it again next year. Just we need that kind of information. So.
Thank you for the update on that, Steve, because I was going to ask about it.
Yeah, it was like I'm a last minute, it's the legislative process. Things happen, but we'll keep working on it as it's information we're going to need.
Emily, do you want to talk about your the BMPs? What did you share recently?
It was
sort of related, yeah.
Oh, I just showed it was a short 2-page fact sheet on ways to reduce risks when planting neonic treated seeds and some info on IPM for seed treatments, which I think was shared out in a couple different places, but I'm happy to share with the board too if you have any ways to get that information out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So we can definitely, I can include it in the meeting materials for this meeting. And then also you can just send it if you, you can send it to me and then I can get it to the members. That's fine.
Okay.
I can put it on SharePoint and everything. But yeah, that's a good way to kind of have it be more public and out there.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so I think we have a pretty full agenda. So I know that we have people that are joined us from afar and are waiting. So I think that we're going to hear from Susan Church first from EFS Plastics. So Susan, if you want, yeah.
Do you want me to share my screen?
That would be amazing. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right. So like I mentioned in my intro, I'm with EFS Plastics. We have a U.S. operation based in Hazleton, Pennsylvania, where we process recycled film. I'll go through the presentation really quick and then to ask any questions related to this. And then I'll also speak a little bit to ag film production that we were previously doing at our facility. We aren't currently, but that could change. Okay, so EFS Plastics, just a little intro. Okay. So just a little bit about our company. Just a quick overview of the numbers and kind of what we do. We manufacture a post-consumer resin, so a recycled material touched by the consumer only, nothing post-industrial. We have 4 facilities. The one that I manage, like I said, is in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. We also have a production facility in Listowel, Ontario, Canada, in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada, and we have a custom molding operation in Ontario, Canada as well. So just a little bit there. And so this is just kind of an overview of the materials that we do bring in. So the Pennsylvania facility is this film only, LDPE film, which goes back in to a low density, polyethylene resin that's mostly turned back into a film, a trash liner, garbage bag, shrink wrap, pallet wrap, that kind of thing. In our Canada facilities, we take these other two grades of material, the mixed plastic, and then HDPE, which is like your, detergent and laundry bottles. This just kind of shows what can be put in the recycling bin and what cannot be taken. So most of the material that we get is from commercial sources, not a lot of residential. So this overview here is obviously more residential since you're seeing, chip bags and, Oreo bags. Those are prohibitives. But your grocery bags, your trash bags, mailers, water bottle overwrap, bread bags, sealed air bags, those are all recyclable in terms of what we can actually use when it comes into our facility. Next slide. This just gives you an idea of where I'm sourcing material from. So we kind of pull from all over. Obviously, the Northeast region is ideal for us since we're in Northeast Pennsylvania, but we do pull from all over the US and into Canada as well. A lot of material does come across the border from Ontario specifically into our facility in Hazleton. And this just kind of shows our process. So this first photo here is a picture of our holding bays. So this is the material that I purchased that comes in baled form. And then you can see next it being put into our shredders. It gets shredded into tiny little pieces, goes up the conveyor belt here in this photo, and then this line where you see the little flakes, that is after it's been ran through our optical sorting system. So it's pulling out any color contaminants, any non LDPE films that could be in the bales, and any other contamination that we see in recycled material, which is a lot sometimes, but we try to keep it as a minimum for the material that we bring in. This next photo here on the bottom left is our blending silos. So once the film goes through the optical sorter, it goes through sorry, my phone's ringing. It goes through an extrusion process, and then it's blended. And the very end product that we make is these little pellets here that come out. We do have a wash line as well, but we're not allowed to share photos of that. But it does go through a wash system. We have hot wash and cold wash at our facility. And then, like I said, this is the resin that we produce. And so there's various grades of this. Most of the demand that we have seen is for a natural resin. A lot of the manufacturers they're putting it back into either, like trash bags or a pallet, overwrap. And specifically if it's going into a color application as well, they want to color it themselves. So they, for the most part, I would say 95% want a clear resin to start with. This is just a picture of the resins that we offer. The first ones here are from our Canada facilities were, HDPE and polypropylene. And then these last two are the ones that we get from film. So I don't have a photo in here of the ag film that we were processing, but that it looks very, very similar to this, with the exception of the color. Obviously, it's more of an off-white, because what we were taking in Hazleton was just the white bale wrap. And then I think that's it. So yeah, so just to speak a little bit to the agricultural film specifically, Morgan and I had talked, prior to this meeting about that commodity. We historically have processed that for quite some time. I know I've worked with Mike Snow a little bit on that, and trying to get a program started. And then, that material, when we run it, is obviously it comes in pretty dirty. And so even though we have a wash line at our facility, it takes a lot of processing to get that just through our system in general and turned into a resin, just because of the residual mud and dirt and rocks that come along with that material being pulled out of the fields and off of the hay and then baled and brought into our location. So so currently we are not processing that material, but ironically enough, just literally within the last, I would say, 4 or 5 days, there has been a small uptick in folks reaching out on the customer side with potential interest there. They're kind of inquiring right now. So that's I think a good thing. I'm going to see, we'll see where that goes. But yeah, so I mean, it's nothing is, I would say, off the table for us. It's just, I would say, we're kind of on a pause right now in terms of any, agricultural film that we're bringing in. So does anyone have any questions?
I do, just to kind of get my head around. So, like, even if you're taking just the white bale wrap, right, that makes those pellets white. So it's still not exactly, they want transparent. They don't want white, right? Just to clarify.
For a trash liner application specifically, and obviously like a pallet wrap or stretch wrap, yeah, they want clear. The end markets for the white or off-white resin, or even really a lot of the mixed color resins, are very they're a little bit limited, much more than the clear, like I said, because folks want to color it themselves. Previously, that white resin from the bale wrap was going into like not a reusable bag, but a white grocery bag essentially. And it has, the other thing with the ag film too, it has it comes through on the resin side as well. It has a little bit of tackiness to it. So it has, limited applications due to that as well. We are exploring, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, is that a function of the material used in the bale wrap itself?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I think they put a tackifier in there as for it to stretch around when it's going around the bale of hay. So yeah, it's and for a mechanical recycler like us, that cannot be it can be removed in our process anyway. Maybe in chemical recycling, I'm not sure, but not for anything mechanical.
Do you recycle any other ag plastics?
We do not. We actually just last week, as part of this kind of resurgence of folks kind of asking more about not just the ag film, folks have been reaching out about grain bags and silage film. We're possibly going to do some trials with that to see how it goes. But it's still kind of in the beginning stages of the discussion right now. So we kind of just talked about it last week. So everything that we currently recycle in terms of film mostly comes from commercial sources. So from your distribution centers, and your recyclers that are sorting for that low density polyethylene film only. Our spec into our plant, I know other processors, we all have different specifications for what the film has to meet. And so ours is pretty high. It has to be less than 5% contamination and 5% color. Most of the time it's 2%, 2% contamination, 2% color, just because of the resins that we produce, that our customers are demanding. They want that clearer, clear material on the end.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Leon had a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Leon.
Yeah, Susan, I think you sort of already answered this. I'm an organic dairy farmer, and we try to run a relatively clean operation, but our bale plastic ends up at certain times of the year having a certain amount of mud in it. It's difficult to get all of the feed out of it. And I wonder how flexible you're able to be with that, because that's a common concern I hear from farmers when we talk about recycling.
Yes, absolutely. So when we were taking the agricultural film, I'm sure you guys are, or many of you are probably familiar with Clean Farms. I don't know if there's anyone on here from there or not, but we worked with them extensively on actually cleaning it. And that's the hard part, is who does that fall upon? Does that fall upon you guys, or does it fall upon us to clean it? And so that's kind of where there's lines of who does what. And so they did a really good job kind of with our guidance of cleaning it up. They would spray it down and try to get as much of the rocks and the debris and dirt out of there before they baled it. And so, I mean, because once it comes to us, we don't have the capability to do that. One, our production facility is relatively small in terms of the area where the raw material actually comes in. So we don't have a vast amount of space to be able to break the bales apart and get any of that out beforehand. And so it's, and part of our process too is we're really not equipped to handle anything loose also. So we do break the bales apart, but they're still somewhat together once we lift them up and put them into the shredding system. So it just, it adds more time, obviously for either for you or for us. And it's just, I guess, figuring out that happy medium of who does what.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does it have to be dry too, or?
Not well for some facilities, yes. If they don't have a wash line, then yes. The other folks would prefer that it's dry. We have a wash line, so as long as it's not soaking wet, we can handle it, because it's going through our wash lines anyway.
I had one other question. So say, last week people are reaching out to you and just starting to dip their toe in the water of maybe being a potential customer for this. Like, what does the timeline look like for you to, like, if that netted out, for you to say, okay, now we will accept ag plastic, let's start this process up again, like, what does that timeline look like for EFS Plastics to, like, have that turnaround?
That's a hard question. We would have to, right now I'm working on getting some trial bales in for these grain bags. I feel like it might be a little bit challenging on that end. Only because the specific bags that we're looking at are in very, very long, it's kind of rolled up essentially. So I have to work with the plant on figuring out how logistically I get it there and how they're gonna actually process it because it's not baled. So but I did just this morning have someone reach out about the agricultural film as it is. I mean, in terms of the bale wrap, I haven't discussed with them yet. I didn't have time this morning in terms of what their end markets are, but they did say ongoing. So if obviously if the financials and everything makes sense, that's kind of where what we have to look at internally. Because if we're going to designate a entire production line or a production line for part of the month for that material, then it has to make sense to switch that over versus, doing what we're currently doing. So it's hard really to tell, I guess, in terms of time frame. But I will definitely, I'll definitely keep you in the loop as we, progress more and learn kind of more about what these customers are wanting. I think one of the things, and we've worked with Clean Farms on this, is really kind of, I guess, pushing more on the producer side of things, not the farmers, but on the actual manufacturers that make this type of film. And so to incorporate PCR or this post-consumer resin back into their process, because really I think that's the key to making all of this work on an ongoing basis. I know a lot of manufacturers don't want to do that because they, it's a whole switch on their production lines to run PCR versus virgin material. But given, the climate we're in right now with virgin resin pricing and everything that affects that, mainly right now is the war. And so it's really, we've seen an uptick in the use of PCR, I would say, kind of since things have been crazy in the world over the last couple of months. But it really, I think that push needs to come on the manufacturer side to actually want to use that, because then, it creates this whole, closed loop environment, which we love those programs. We have a whole department that focuses just on that, just on closed loop programs where we take in, the baled material, we produce it, we produce the resin, it goes back basically into the same origin that it came from. So that would really be ideal. And we've had that discussion with Clean Farms, and I know it's not an easy, it's not, an easy or a quick change to make. So.
Thanks. Go ahead, Greg. Do you have a question?
Yeah, Susan, can you talk about capacity, right? What capacity will EFS have to handle volume, since you're already importing down Route 81 to Hazelden, right? You're going from Ontario straight down to your facility. Yeah. Meanwhile, Pennsylvania itself, as an agricultural community, has an onslaught of plastics.
Yeah.
So what would be EFS capacity to build up?
Well, so we have at our facility, we have 3 production lines. So the capacity all depends on how efficient we're running. So if we're running at max efficiency, which we always want to be, then we should ideally be processing 80 to 90 loads a month. 20 plus some loads a week inbound. But all of those, like I said, right now are for either clear, or we do run a colored line, only because, we have to, we have to run the product that's kind of, that we're pulling out of any of the clear that we get in. So, like I said, I think it's the economics of everything to make sense and to either run colored material, run ag film, whatever that is. But that would kind of be our capacity is roughly, 80, probably 85 loads a month of raw material. And that's coming from, you saw on my map from kind of all over. The bulk of it does come from the Northeast. So New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Connecticut, all kind of over that whole area. Hopefully I answered that. Anything else? Morgan, I know, were there any questions around the biodegradable? I know you and I touched on that a little bit. It was kind of thrown out there at one point in legislation.
Yeah, so I think that is, kind of the other responsibility that we are looking at. So one is to, make a recommendation to reduce the use of ag plastic, reduce the waste associated with ag plastic, right? So, but then another charge is to look into alternatives, right? And it says biodegradable alternatives to ag plastic. And I know I was just looking back at our notes from talking about, but I mean, my notes are pretty cryptic, but about how basically they cause you a lot of problems, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to talk to that, that'd be great. Yeah, thanks for remembering.
Yeah, I can touch on that really quick. So we, I think it was prior to my time with EFS, but we did in the past run biodegradable, compostable film, whatever you want to call it. And it did not go well. So the components in that film do not break down at all in the extrusion process. And they actually get stuck. Well, they get stuck in our extruder. So it created like a gooey mess. And would not make a film at all. So, I mean, I think that type of material is better suited for a composter versus, a mechanical recycler, because it cannot be put back through our process anyway. It cannot be put back into a resin. And then the other part of it too, say it were to get through our system and make a resin, most of the customers, any of the customers that we work with are not wanting that. They're wanting a film that's going to last, and they're not wanting that compostable, biodegradable component of it on their end for whatever application it's going back into. So not really suited for us. Everything that we take is a fossil fuel based plastic. So we would not be able to process anything like that.
Thanks. Does anyone else have any more questions for Susan while we have her here?
Can I?
I guess you can ask.
Yeah, sure.
Could you say a little bit more about the PCR? I think it means post consumer responsibility or something else.
What was that? So
PCR.
PCR is post-consumer resin. So it's
consumer resin.
Resin.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's basically just a fancy word for a plastic pellet. They look like little clear pellets that mostly go back into a bag application. So we are selling those to converters that are going to make that into a final product, whether that's a bag, a trash liner, stretch wrap, or pallet, or beverage overwrap. So, and a lot of that too, the converters are making that. There's a lot of PCR mandates that states have put in place for usage. You have to have, for their sustainability goals, have to have 10 to 30% PCR in their products. So that's where most of it goes. So it's using post-consumer resin, which is kind of like I mentioned, closing the loop on versus using virgin resin that is mass produced and mostly imported from overseas. But a lot of people do that if they don't have mandates, just due to the cost.
Yeah, PCR is cheaper.
Historically, no.
Okay.
Historically, no. And I think that's kind of a prohibitive to some folks, just because of the, by the time you add in the cost of the material that I'm buying, plus the production cost, the conversion cost, the packaging costs, and then, whatever the cost is for the converter to actually make that into the product that the manufacturer is buying. It all adds up. So right now, though, kind of where the market's at, I would say PCR is right there in line, or a better option, I think, in terms of price for manufacturers. And the virgin resin, just because of the way the imports right now are looking, and there's a very large lag of ships and containers coming in that have the resin on them. Folks are having to switch to PCR. You're welcome.
Any other questions for Susan? Well, great. Thank you very much for coming and explaining EFS plastics to us and kind of talking through, challenges that you've seen with ag plastics and kind of the end use and how it all works. We'll definitely build that into our recommendation as we make it. So
yeah, absolutely. And I'll stay in touch with you, Morgan, and keep you updated if things change. And I'll just I'll keep you in the loop.
Thank you. Yeah, that's definitely promising, but also speaks to kind of like the dynamic nature of the market, I guess, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So do you want me to stay on, or
you don't have to,
okay,
but yeah, it's up to you, but thank you.
Is Mike is presenting next?
Mike is next.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I'll stay on the list of Mike.
Oh, good, thanks.
Okay.
I was gonna say, make sure you keep us in the loop too, because we have a load and we're looking for a market.
Yeah, I will,
Thanks.
for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. You can.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna try to share. I put a few slides together too. Okay, can you see a slide now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Oh. Okay. Susan, thanks for talking about this, because I guess I'll kind of talk about what we've been doing on, and sort of how this has been on the other end. Most of you know, well, if you don't know who we are, we're one of the watershed organizations. If you got questions, glad to answer them later. But the main thing is, we're a group of farmers, and we, among other things, we try to solve problems together, and that's where this came out of. Because the work that you're doing now as a group, I guess, you're not the first, and we're not the first. And we have used, we have member farmers who have tried to crack this nut for decades. I mean, since the 90s, they've been working, they try. And there was a working group back in the, that wrote their initial report in 2021, and then I think it kind of fell apart. We've looked at that, and I'll sort of explain how that informs what we do. But anyways, we basically we tried to build on a couple of our farms. We're really trying to figure out what to do with RAP, because the first lesson here is that as farmers, like, none of us want we use the RAP because we kind of need to. We can talk about that in a second, because I think that is important, since you're thinking about alternatives and reducing the use, but actually the use of plastics is going up. And that's partly to deal with water quality issues. Like, we're actually encouraged to use bale wrap, but also because it helps us deal with climate variability and change, mitigating those risks. And it also just helps us with our economics. And we can talk about all the plastics and how that goes. And worth mentioning, this is out of that report from 5 years ago. Most of the plastic is bunker plastic. That's pretty nasty stuff, but there's no recycling for that. The bale wrap is, you can see it's a tiny percentage of that. Same with all the other plastics we use. Anyways, the LDPE, though, was a good fit for our farms. And also that's where there was a ready market. So our goal was to sort of figure out that piece, and then to expand into other plastics if we could. So that other report had some recommendations that all required infrastructure and money, and private companies usually were part of that, Casella. And we really were trying to take a different approach to see if we could make it work in a more farmer-led program, one that didn't have the profit requirement. We're trying to keep things as lean as possible, as simple as possible, and not require, we were figuring we probably weren't going to get any money for this. And we know that there have been projects, including in Vermont, where the state has put money into it to kickstart the project, and it doesn't last, and that's not a sustainable option. So we were sort of trying to get started as lean as we could. We did get a small grant to help us pay, mainly for things like Guy Crosby driving around the state, our watershed, picking up plastic and going through it. We'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so we have this kind of long, stringy, Chile-like watershed, really not conducive to logistics, and so, well, I'll explain why that's important in just a second. But maybe to say that if you're seeing this map, the blue are mostly farms, and then the red are baling facilities that were willing to work with us. These three are solid waste districts, public solid waste districts. There are a few balers that are private, and then there are a bunch that wouldn't work with us. And part of that is because they've tried it before and couldn't keep it going. Either too much work, too much hassle, market came and went. It's sort of the same story over and over. Anyways, the way it would work for us is we basically were charging our farmers a $50 membership fee, as if that was going to cover the cost. But we give them totes to put plastic into. They fill them up. They're supposed to keep that wrap clean and dry. Gravel, dirt, manure, water, all bad things. And then when they're full, we come and pick them up. That's sort of the main gist. That's how we want it to work. And just to give you a sense of what it looks like, right? So at first we were doing this on Guy's flatbed trailer. People were trying it, storing the plastic in all different ways. This was the very beginning, before we'd even started. People had plastic. A lot of our farms just had plastic piling up for years because they knew they didn't want to throw it out either for because they don't like the idea of it or because they don't want to pay, whatever it costs right now, almost $200 a ton to take it to the landfill. So then you dump it, you take it to the facility, you arrange a time for them to make a bale, and then they have some conveyance system. It goes into the compactor, and there are different kinds of compactors. There's vertical and horizontal, and then you get this awkward bale that comes out. Here's what it looks like at another site. This one has a vertical conveyance, you can see, and so this was Lebanon, and they didn't like doing this because they had to use the forklift and they had to actually touch the material and pull it out of the bags, and that's the problem. But then again, we get these bales, and the bales weigh 1,500 to 2,000 pounds each. And then we take them to, hi, Susan. There's Susan. Then we took sort of 5 test bales down to EFS to try, we wanted to see what they thought of it. And if it was clean enough, basically. They gave us the primo price, which was good, but they didn't actually give us the feedback on because they didn't open the bales while we were there, right? So that was one thing we never actually got like feedback on was it clean enough? And that's one kind of big question for us right now is how clean does it need to be? What's good enough? Because like Leon was saying, except for a few dedicated souls who are like hanging up their I'll show you what one of our farms used to do, right? They'd hang up their wrap, and it's like they've got like a can of toothbrushes in there, right? Like, like no one's got time to do that, except for Bill Emmons. But we won't talk about that. Okay, so we took that down, and we got a price that basically covers the cost of transport to Pennsylvania, depending on the price of diesel. But if you send a full load, right, 40,000 pounds, 18 to 20 of these things, we should be able to get. We hoped to get a price that would at least cover that cost. And we did the first time, but now that we have we're basically ready, just about ready for a full load, and we don't have a market. So I'm going to talk about some challenges real quick. At the farm, obviously, how clean is it? Some people do a really nice job, and we can tell because when they have a full tote, it's easy to like lift it up onto my truck, for example, or onto, you don't even need a skid steer or loader, although that's certainly a lot easier. So there's usually some kind of material. The question is how much is too much? Some people just couldn't keep it covered, right? So after they took the wrap off the bale and fed it out, then you would think like, okay, we just put that in a bucket or put that under cover, put it somewhere dry, but that's not that easy in the real life of a farm. And so sometimes we'd have a lot of ice, really heavy, and while that may not be too big of a deal for Susan, it is for the balers. They really don't like it. Plus it throws off the weight, right? When you have a lot of water or ice or something like that in there. And we actually just took some to get a bale made, and the solid waste district said that's like there was some fermented bale juice in it, and it got on them, and they thought it was gross, and they were like, we're doing this again. And like that's a problem. So we have best management practices, and we can do a better job of we need to do a better job of helping our farmers keep it clean enough. That's one piece. But I want to say before I get to the logistics that right now we take that on, like that work, like Susan was saying, you know, who does that land on? Well, right now it's landing on us in our program. And that's like, well, we all need to talk about that. You know, whose job is all of this stuff? So what happens is Guy Crosby, who was sort of our guy, excuse the pun. He would take this on as he was the one that would see how dirty the wrap is, because he took it back to his farm and then he would unload the wrap. So he actually, let me show you this. All right, so logistics, some of the problems, mileage and time, right? So Guy lives sort of in the middle of this map, and he would drive to as many farms as he could, and hopefully pick up a full load, but often wasn't a full load of his trailer. And then so it's his time and mileage. And for us, the solution to that is going to have to be either, well, or both. Can the farms help us with this so that we don't have to pay someone? Because haulers usually are paying a lot, and right now they're paying a lot more. Like, it's just not cheap. And two, can we store stuff pre and post baling closer to the baling sites, right? So how do we decentralize this? Because that will almost certainly, we haven't crunched all the numbers yet, where that's what we're getting into now for the next 2 months, is to kind of like compile all of our lessons learned. But we suspect that a decentralized version is better to reduce drive time, right? Whereas the report from 2021, they were saying we need more centralized infrastructure. I don't know if I don't think that I don't know if that's the future. There are people who do this stuff for a living, like mapping logistics, who could like figure this out in a day. And they're the people we should be asking to help with this. Geography majors, that kind of thing. Okay, so solid waste districts. See this trailer? Guy bought this trailer of his own on his own because the solid waste districts said that they didn't really like having to empty the totes. And so Guy would go through, empty the totes at his farm, sort it, take out anything that was bad, if there was, not too much like bad plastic, but dirt and stuff like that. And then he would load it into this trailer that could then just be dumped rather than require a skid steer to like handle it. Okay, other things with the solid waste districts, they've tried this before. They say they don't have any storage space. They don't want to spend the time. They got a lot on their minds and they just don't want to deal with it. And part of that's because the market comes and goes and it's just a pain in the butt. No one likes recycling, taking this plastic, and no one likes giving it. So again, for solutions, our approach has been, how much can we take on to make it easier for everybody else, right? So we manage the farmers, we manage the best management practices, we store all the material, we bring it all in one go, right? So we come with the material and we take it. So all it takes is like it's like 30 minutes, depending on the setup, 30 minutes to an hour to make a compacted bale. And it probably could happen more quickly, but it depends on the setup of the solid waste district. So we make it as easy as possible. And we've said, look, like, just tell us how much that costs to do it. And that'll, we'll build that into our costs, so that this can be as painless for you. Just give us a commitment. And none of them will give us a commitment. Sometimes they're all excited and they're like, well, we want to do this. We want to do this. Sure, just come and we'll make a bail for you. And others like won't return phone calls, don't give us the time of day, start doing it, and then they say no. So this is where we're going to need help. All right, markets really inconsistent, the low prices, and Susan, you guys were offering a fine price, just to say that, like, this is cheap stuff. This doesn't happen because no one can make money at it, right? Or very little. But also, like, as Susan alluded to, I mean, plastics especially, this is about there are really big forces at work here, things that we don't have any control over. So like some state mandate to have what is it, EPR, which is who's responsible, right? So like basically the manufacturer should be responsible for this stuff. Like that only happens if there are like major requirements from at the federal level. I mean, not that anything can happen at the international level right now, but like they need to be big mandates. So like state stuff, we know as Vermont, like we're just a small state. We can't really make much difference. Maybe regional though could be really helpful. So what this means though, in terms of what can we do about it, like storage, like having the strategic bale wrap reserve, where we can like keep this material at low or no cost, but keep it dry and clean and accessible, so that when the market does come back, we can participate. So that's sort of one thing that we've been thinking about a lot, and it's something that hopefully someone can help us with. For example, okay, so there are some models in Europe and South America. Canada has model that seem to have been working. We can talk about some of this stuff, but the main thing is, we really think that we don't really know that government, even our state government, which is good, and functional. We don't really know that that's the best way to do it. Like I said, our approach has been kind of farmer centric, which has multiple benefits, but we do need help. There should be partnerships, such as like the state could mandate solid waste districts to commit time for us, to say like, yeah, if you want to come and at least once a month, like we'll be there for you once a month at least. Tell them that they have to do it and they'll do it, and keep it as a reasonable price. I would just say one more thing, should we even be doing this? Like, because this isn't just about oil and it's not just about carbon, it's also about energy. And there are people who know how to assess this really well, and maybe it does work out, but the idea of having like post-consumer pellets in every sheet of paper or piece of plastic, I worry that that's something like ethanol, where remember, like when we thought we'd replace oil with ethanol as if that was some piece of the green puzzle. That is not. That is actually worse, right? And we know that. So I would just be really careful about when you're making recommendations for how this should work. Likewise, how much energy and fossil fuels are we spending to process this ag plastic once, where it gets downgraded because there's a certain entropy like thing happening with plastic and lots of materials, where it's not going to be as good as it was, to turn it into a trash bag where it's just going to go in the landfill again. Just saying, I'm curious what the real energy balance and metabolism is on that. I think that was it. Those are sort of where we're at right now. Like I said, we haven't really crunched all our numbers yet to figure out how much we would truly have to charge our farmers for this service. But I think the main takeaway is that we hope that there can be some help from the state, not necessarily money, but commitments, things like that. Maybe some storage space. I guess, can you hear me? Is this thing on?
Oh, sorry. I muted us because the planes are going over.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yes, we can hear you. Sorry.
Yeah, we had the F-35s flying over our building here for a little while. So,
okay.
Mike, the funding you got, is that over now, or is it still going, or what's the story on that?
It's just about over. The grant cycle ends soon this summer. So that
Who's that grant from?
That was from Working Lands.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any plans to?
Small amount, 20. Just so you have a sense of how much. It was like $20,000. Most of which is actually like going to Guy's mileage.
Sure.
We're not paying him for his time. We're paying him for his mileage. If for his time, we probably wouldn't have. We'd probably go over.
Are they about reapplying for that?
Well, we did actually at the last round, and they didn't give it to us. We basically asked for some help, again, a modest amount to help us diversify, but that was before we lost our market. So it's not like we're not looking for market opportunities, but so the alternatives right now are landfilling, and that's what that would cost us. It would cost us something like $3,000 to take one tractor trailer load to Coventry. Of course, if we ask Casella to help us with this, they'll probably charge us more because it's Casella. And I'm sorry if there's anyone from Casella on here, but they've not been that helpful for us. And remember, in the previous initiatives to do this, they're the ones who said, well, we can't make any money at this. We're not going to help you again, basically. So just to say, they have a profit motive and they need to do that. And I get that. So that's sort of why we took this on, to try to remove that motive, that piece. The other options are brokers right now. But they're like, well, how much do you want to get paid for this stuff? And we're like, well, we don't know. I mean, can we just break even? But whereas we might have gotten paid 6.5 cents a pound, we're probably going to have to at best get 1 or 2 cents a pound. And that's if anyone will actually buy it. And we're talking about brokers who are working with people around the world now, right? We know where to take it in the US for anyone to deal with it. Other options have in the past have been pyrolysis and basically making a fuel out of it. There's all sorts of questions to ask about that. Real pyrolysis, hopefully there would be a capture of the gases and reuse those as a fuel also. I don't know enough about that, but just to say, in pyrolysis, when we make biochar, there are gases produced. So just, is that better or worse than landfilling, where there aren't gases produced? It's just dumped or buried. Just to say, really complicated right now.
Thanks.
Go ahead, John. Here's a question.
Well, more a comment. I was going to bring it up in the other business kind of at the end, but last month, and thanks Susan and Mike for those presentations, very informative and interesting as we keep having this ongoing conversation about what the heck to do with plastic. But last month at the Champlain Valley Farmer Coalition meeting, we had two folks come in and talk about this new technology that they're trying to get imported to the United States. It's from South Korea. It's like this volatilization technology. One guy was from Casella, Dennis Poole, and there was another fella named, I have it in my notes here, Glenn Goodfellow from Sabian Technologies. So I thought at the time when they presented at the meeting in Middlebury that it might be good to have them come in front of this group as well. So I can, make that connection. They're not up and running. It's something that they're trying to get started up. Mike mentioned Casella. Obviously, I'm not from Casella, but Dennis Poole is from Casella, and I think they're working with Sabian on this new process that converts plastic to, I think, naphtha, and then the naphtha is sold off as a byproduct. That's my rudimentary understanding of it.
That does remind me that we've spoken with someone who is also trying to bring some technology, this one from Europe, supposedly a proven technology. He's waiting for investors. He's sort of got this go ahead to create a special kind of recycling hub down in Northampton, which is geographically is probably a really good idea. Um, and the idea is that this takes like plastics and it basically compresses them, right? So there's no transformation. It goes directly from the material into a new material. And I think what they tend to make are things like barn mats, these thick kind of rubbery things, which is also really nice. Like in our perfect world, we'd be taking our bale wrap and having it made into something useful back on the farm, like fence posts or cow mats or something. But every time we talk to them, it just seems like a little less realistic every time. So I just say, like, there are a lot of ideas out there, and I know that engineers can come up with ideas, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a business and
Yep.
that it's actually going to happen. Not anytime soon.
Well, this was brought to us by Casella, and they said they wouldn't put it out there if they didn't have enough. They're confident enough in it that they want to start pitching it, I guess, is the way to put it.
Okay. Well, one question might be is, are they also looking for money for it? Because when we talked to this guy down in New Hampshire, in Massachusetts, but at the end of the conversation, it was like, great, like sign us up. And they're like, well, can we, how can you help us make it?
Yeah.
So,
I'm sure they won't do it if it's a loss leader, right? So
no, right.
Sean, I'm happy to, if you have contacts or want to connect me, I'm happy to then kind of nail them down and have them come and
Yeah.
talk to.
I can
AIB.
connect you with Dennis from Casella and we can go from there.
Great.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. So, Mike, I have a question. So right now, I think you mentioned, so you almost have a full load right now, right? And so, what do you think? Like, what's your like, endpoint for like, what are we gonna do? Or is it on guys' property? Like, where is it right now? Or like, what when are you gonna be at a tipping point where you have to do something with it? Do you think?
Well, that's a good question. We're planning to have a conversation maybe tomorrow morning about that. But we're sort of there, right? So we're, our goal with this pilot was one full load, and then sort of reassess, right? And figure out how we proceed. So that's sort of where we're at, is we're going to have to reassess. The challenges are, one question is, will Guy be willing to hold on to it for now? Or do we need to find somewhere else to store it? Or do we want to just take it to the dump? How long do we wait? Like, some of this will just depend on what money and opportunities we have. My personal opinion is we should sit on it for a while. Our country hasn't really felt the war, but we're going to, because all of the oil that had just left the Strait of Hormuz when the war started has arrived. So now nothing else is coming. So we don't know what's going to happen this summer. We don't really know like what all that means yet. So I would like to sit on it, but I don't know how we're going to decide where to store it. It's not that much, honestly, right? It's 20 of these things. But the other question is, well, what about our farmers? Do we tell them to keep collecting or not? And we need to decide, because I don't think Guy's going to keep, driving around the states to pick it up. So we have to make those decisions. It would suck to fold it. I would rather we keep going and wait for the market to develop again, and then dump it on Susan as soon as she says we can.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wanted to speak real quick, Mike, to you had mentioned the feedback on your material. So I think, we were in talks with you and Annie, right? Was it Annie that was working with Guy? Right. So for quite a long time leading up to you guys actually having material to bring to us. And unfortunately, right when you guys brought in the material is when we kind of started, I guess our management, our owner essentially, we were seeing, we had already, I guess, previously had been seeing a shift in the demand for that resin, but we were still bringing it in hopes that, something new would be developed. And then I think right after yours came in, I don't think we processed anything since then. So that's part of the reason for no feedback, because we may even have those bales still sitting at our facility. But I will say, from first look, I mean, I was there, when that material came in, and it looked great in comparison to the other bale wrap that I've seen come into our facility. So I would say, whatever you guys were doing for, collection wise and making sure that it was clean was definitely a step above everything else that I've seen. So kudos to you guys on that for sure. And hopefully, I mean, we're optimistic too. It's that something will change in the market. I mean, I'm familiar with some of those technologies as well. More so the European technology versus the one that Sean mentioned, but I think there are things coming. I guess it's just a matter of how long that takes. So
Thanks for saying that. Thank you. Yeah, that's
yeah.
good.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Mike? I think Mike.
I guess I was.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I did have one question. I was hoping you might speak a little more about your thoughts on, you talked a little bit about the preference for decentralized versus centralized. And there was like a kind of a complicated slide about the models in Europe and South America. I was wondering if you had anything else you wanted to share about the infrastructure piece, and decentralized and how that would work, because I think it said something about not wanting to have individual farms hauling, and yeah, so if you could speak any more about that, I'd be interested in your thoughts.
I guess I would start by saying that I'm not sure, and like I said, that's sort of what the next month or two is about, is for us to try to think through that more clearly. And if we can get some help from logistic expert to think through it, I think that would make a lot of sense. And that goes for your group too, as you think about this. But farms do, like, if we can help them, if there was a location close to the dump, for example, or the place to bale, then I don't think that storage needs to be complicated. And that's something where the state could come in and build, just a shell of a building, or one of those, what are those, what do they call like a
pole
large
barns?
a hoop structure. Yeah, it's just something cheap. It doesn't have to have sides even, right? Or whatever, but it can be really cheap, really simple, just something to keep the heavy weather off, to store plastic for a while in an organized way. Um, and then when there's enough for a bale to be made, to run it through the baling, and then once there's enough, you know, of those to make a load to take to Hazleton, then that's what we're talking about. And with bale wrap, the quantities just aren't that unmanageable. They're totally manageable. If we were doing that with like the bunk wrap, that's gonna be a really different conversation. But I think that's the way to do it, right? And so farms can take their own stuff, or they can hire someone to do it. I don't know that we're not a cooperative right now, and since there wouldn't be enough money in it to like really hire someone to do this, I just don't. I think it makes sense if farmers don't have to pay. They're saving money by not taking it to the dump, right? The cost of the dump is going up and up. It's going to keep going up and up, even when they close Coventry, because no one in Vermont will open a second dump. So it's going to have to go farther away. That's going to cost more. So I think that is fair, and we're gonna survey our farmers and ask, but I think they would probably be willing to like take it once in a while or pay someone to get to this place, to the storage spot. I think that's the way to do it. But would love
Thanks.
to hear someone argue differently. Yeah.
Like when you do you think you'll survey the farmers this summer? Is it like part of the grant or?
That's our plan. Yeah. 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 That's the plan.
And you'll have the numbers that you were talking about, the cost numbers and stuff by then too.
That's our plan. Yeah.
Well, why don't we have you come back in the fall? We'll
Yeah.
get the numbers and see what's next.
Yeah, so I'll just be in touch and just kind of as we get more answers, as you kind of crunch the numbers, maybe you can give us another update in fall sometime, kind of just bring it full circle so that we can learn as much as you do. You're basically on the front lines learning this for us, that we can make part of our recommendation, right? Like, this is what we learned, like you are doing it and giving us the lessons learned.
Sure.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question for me? Awesome. Thank you, Mike.
No, thank you.
Yeah, super helpful. And also frustrating. We can hear the frustration in your voice. So I think we're definitely understanding that and seeing that this is hard, and it has been revisited multiple times, and it's hard to keep doing it because there's not a clear solution. But so thank you for doing the hard work and giving it a try. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and looking forward to hearing the next talk. Because if you guys are making it work, we want to learn from you. So,
Mike, I'm going to have some things to piggyback on, some parallels, and I don't know if I'll be a ray of sunshine for you.
Yeah, sorry, kind of a little bit of a downer day, guys. Sorry. At least it's sunny out. But go ahead, Greg.
All right, let's see if I can share my slides. Share. Come on. There we go. Why is it not sharing? Okay, can you see my slides?
Yeah.
Not yet. Sometimes it's tricky if you have multiple monitors.
Screen. Come on.
Yes, we can see your email.
All right,
Yeah.
you can see me now. Folks, all that we're talking about here, and good afternoon, I'm Greg Jaleski. I'm the Director of Solid Waste here in Madison County. We've been in the ag plastic game since in the early 2000s. It really ramped up in 2012, and we still continue a little bit here today. What you see there is we are a full integrated waste system. We have a landfill that I manage. We have a MRF that is over there to the right-hand side. And on that, you can actually see some of our ag plastics to that lower section out there that we are sorting and cleaning in that aerial view at the back end of our MRF. So been something that's been a challenge for us for quite some time. If you look at our population, and I mentioned we're an integrated solid waste system, we're an enterprise fund. We get no direct tax dollar support. It's all based off of fees that go across our scale. So whether recycling goes across the scale, inbound or sold outbound, or our trash, goes across the scale and pays a tip fee. If you look at our population demographics, right, 67,000, 26,000 households. We're quite similar, on a percent, 10% of, Vermont, your scale. We actually have a little bit less on the household side because we have more people, a denser population living in households than as a state you guys do in Vermont. We have roughly 6,900 or 690 farms here in Madison County. There's a rough estimate because of consolidation. We have about 250 to 300 dairies plus plain farmers. So ag plastics are a huge part of our waste stream, and we have to manage. Here's another aerial of our landfill, and you can see all the plastic. That's photo to the left is a lot of plastic in that waste stream, and us spreading ash as cover. The larger chunk is actually a boat. We're close to the main lake, Oneida Lake in central New York. So we get a lot of boats and miscellaneous plastics, including boat wrap. Having a lot of lakes and boats around, we get a lot of boat wrap. So the other is a larger aerial of our new cell being developed. We have roughly 100+ years of lifespan left in our landfill, so we have flow control. So only the waste in our community can be landfilled in our landfill. We also have a dual stream MRF, so we are still one of those communities that has not gone single stream for our system. Our haulers have the option to go single stream and take it to other MRF facilities, but we are still a hand sort MRF with a partnership with our handicap and disadvantaged employment managers with ARC Madison Cortland. So they staff and manage the MRF volumes for us. These are our commodities. We make a 1 through 7 mix, which is HDPE, milk jug based heavy, because we are a large dairy and consumption community. And we make what's called a hard pack bale of a mixed paper and cardboard that goes to Kruger Paper in Quebec. And then we have ag plastics. So we've had a different scenario than you guys are, focusing on baleage wrap. We've been silage bunker cover focus because I can move HDPE along with the boat wrap with as an HDPE, and I can move clean to MRF grocery. We cannot move the LDPE baled, the white stretch wrap. I have not had a marketplace for that since roughly 2019. So as you know, I'm a farm kid, so I was a silo kid, right? Climbing silos, hand unloading, right? nothing had a wrap on it. Our round bales, right? Your outer layer was always a sacrificial layer that I threw in a heifer barn as bedding or matting. But today, everybody, right? Nobody's using their silos because of safety anymore, whether it's brown lung or just the climbing risks or the electricity and maintenance risks of running on loaders. Everybody's gone to bunkers. And the staging of that silage. So we focus again on bunker covers and all, but we also had handled greenhouse, hoop house materials, mulch films, maple tubing. We have a large maple industry here in central New York and particularly in Madison County. So there's been a lot of requests to handle tubing, trays, pots, drums, right? Teat dip drums, pipeline cleaning drums. How do you handle all those bulk rigids? So trying to find options for them. Cornell, we had a great partnership with Cornell in early 2009. They had a mobile baler, but since I had a MRF, we didn't need the mobile baling unit. And Cornell had a grant to start an ag plastics program in the state. So to your left is a snapshot of how Cornell back in the day launched its ag program, right? And you know, Mike was mentioning he got 20 grand to get started, right? Cornell initially got 350 grand and then got another 450 to continue. And it died. The program quietly disappeared by 2012. So as mentioned, by 2012, it lost its funding support, quietly went away. Us who had been early adopters of it were left hanging in support. Other municipalities were looking at Madison County, since we owned our own MRF, how we could help, because we had started and built relationships with everybody from export brokers to polymer folks. Trex had been an early adopter with us, trying to manage some and do test pilots. Revolutions and Delta Plastics had a large network from Minnesota to Arkansas, and we still work with them today, but that's at a zero cost. We pay the trucking to move materials, and even up into Canada with Enviroplast up there, trying to move ag plastics. And it's really been a challenge, right, to get stuff moved. Just because the amount of materials increased, farm labor, and as Mike mentioned, nobody wants to clean it, nobody wants to store it, nobody wants to keep it dry. The cost of farm labor to manage this has gotten out of hand, where we were getting dumped on a lot of dirty materials. So most of us have scaled back. Here's to the right is a snapshot of our early adoption of what we took in. And you see, as I mentioned, we handled everything from the mulching films. My daughter and I were out last weekend, and she had noticed a strawberry farm was just, the entire thing was mulch films, right? A lot of our food crop growers now are just plastic film everywhere. What do we do with that? How, right? We've gotten agriculture dependent on whether it's fossil fuel based fertilizers or now fossil fuel based plastics, for, faster, better profit returns, but we have no way to manage the waste productively, right? It's waste. It's not really recyclable at this time. So we also had to challenge, I don't know if this is as big a problem in Vermont, right? A lot of large farms, and some of our plain farmers were burning a lot. So New York had done an open burn ban on particularly wastes. So a lot of enforcement activity has been revolved around that. So that's diverted more to the landfills. We had also relied heavily on plastics to oil. We were paying to truck ag plastics all the way to Florida at one point in time. so it could go to a pilot project of plastic to oil conversion that did not maintain sustainability financially, and that folded up. So unfortunately, our trash, right, we socialized the cost of managing ag plastic to all the other community, right, because it came out of our tip fees. We calculated out on a rough calculation that it costs between $400 and $600 a ton to manage ag plastic, right? That's get it delivered, clean it, store, dry it, bale it, store it, palletize it. When you're shipping, you'll see when you're shipping at internationally, you have to quality code each individual bale and take pictures of it. It became quite challenging to do. So as the LDPE stretch wrap disappeared, the markets for that disappeared, and we maintained good relationships with Revolution / Delta Plastics. We focused on the opposite of you guys, just on the bunker cover, because we could get that clean, where the bale wrap would not come clean. We still manage some mixed rigid plastics to the tune of roughly 28 tons per year. So roughly a trailer a year of generation rate of bulky rigids from our community. And then roughly 20 tons per year, one tractor trailer load per year of a mix of clean grocery and ag films. So in our peak, we were on ag film and bulky rigid. We were over 127 ton per year from our community. So that was quite a bit. But that peak was between 2015 and 2017. And we've seen a great decline because of the markets for that. Again, we offered ag bag or, cubic yard bags, just like Mike is offering. They could pick them up as they drop their material off here at our material recovery facility. They could pick up a free bag. The cubic yard bags, very few ever did. They would bring them in. Our plain farmers would bring them in on, bale wagons. Our others would bring them in dump trailers like your partner Guy there was doing. And then we'd have them dump it out and we'd have to sort. Some we would have to send back and reject, and they would have to go back over the scale. But we never did recoup the financial exposure for that. Here's a load that was going to Asia. So each one of those bales had a photo taken of it and characterized. I had to take a photo of each bale going into the trailer, then a photo of the guy closing the trailer, a photo of the seal. I had one load that went to export market. I had to paint a number on each individual bale so they could track it as it went through export. So it does become challenging. It's not just as easy as store it and send it, or, hey, come pick this up. There's some hoops at times, particularly on the export market. Along with that, Mike was mentioning storage. So our material recovery facilities, and it's very similar in Vermont, are overseen by a separate, right, your waste management departments, right, under your DEP, under the waste side. So they have different regulations. We're not able to store material that long because of the fire risks. We have to keep commodities moving. I unfortunately inherited a lot of stuff that was stored outside here from earlier programs, and we had to make them go away. And it's hard to tell a community that you helped subsidize this, we helped educate you to separate it, but there's no place for it to go. So all that time and money was wasted, and now we have to put it into the landfill. That goes against our core message. And Susan was talking about, we'll wait and see. The municipal message, right? Our constituents, to actually develop a program, we need consistency, right? We can't be on and off again with a program, or materials that are readily acceptable. So that is a challenge for us. The current realities are there are so many more films out there, and being more used more widely, right? You have the clear to the black, your low tunnels to your mulching films are clear or black. Your hoop houses, your underliners or bags. Now you have the bladder bags for your anaerobic digesters that are an HDPE welded material. So, you know, many farms that are moving to lagoons are going to digester or lagoon covers. They're disposable. How do we get those reincorporated back into the system? You guys are stuck with one remaining landfill, right? We have over 23 municipal solid waste landfills in New York, and we're already importing, you know, everybody else's waste. So how do we find the responsibility to manage these materials at the point of generation? Considerations, Mike also hit that. We need an end producer responsibility bill, right? New York State has been looking at it, but we always carve out niches, right? There's always special interests. And at times, you know, the ag community is part of that special interest. How do we subsidize or help the ag community offset these costs? So oftentimes EPR gets kicked back, right? Is this really a solid waste issue? And a solid waste capacity issue, or is this an ag consumer utilization issue? Where do we go with that? How do we get investment into regional processing, right? For me, Hazleton is less than 3 hours away from my facility. But right, where's the capacity, as I asked? And with that capacity, we need an infrastructure. We have to leave, right? Most of the EPR programs written out there still exclude chemical recycling, right? Whether it's due to special interest, niche, concern. But if we have these dirty type materials that we really want recycled, chemical recycling is like our only option right now to consistently move and screen those material out. Then working with it, whether it is on your waste side for recycling or your ag side, how do we continue with sustaining grant funding, right? True carve outs through ag and markets or recycling to keep these and offset some of those inherent costs. And again, the true long-term success will be the farms owning the fact that their material, to get it recycled and for them to save money, they're going to have to invest staff time and management time to keep the stream cleaner. Because there's only so much we can do to market it when it, you know, we're using, if it's coming off a bunker, right, we're using shavers now, right? They're using loaders just to grab it with a claw and rip the cover off. And then they're shaving the side of the meatloaf or the bunker to get the feed out, the silage. So most of that is so dirty, it's very hard to manage. You know, your bale wraps, a lot of times we're storing our bales closer to the barn, sometimes in wet areas. So really on storage management and cycling. And we're using skid steers and spears and just dragging them all over the place. So how do we get and keep them clean? So in my conclusion, you know, to go from that silage tube to one of my, yeah, Susan, I'm sorry, that's about as clean as we can get a bale done. And that's again why Delta, we work on the HDPE with Delta, because by the time it gets to them, it's usually dry enough it flakes off through their process. How do we get those materials to her pellets? Takes time and money. And today we have less and less time. And, you know, as much as whether it's right financially, there's more money out there, but there's less readily available, right? All of our equipment costs more, our staff costs more, our services cost more. So it's been taking more time and more money than most are comfortable with. So I know I went through that pretty quick, but again, we've had working across the state and working with Cornell, you know, nearly 15 years of experience plus working with this market, and there's no consistency. Nor has our regulatory community really been supportive at helping. But how does a state or a regulatory community create a market, right? And is that the role where in the private sector and the consumer sector side is their role in market development? So that's what I have. I have plenty of time for questions.
Go ahead, Steve. Just
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that. So what I heard you say is that you either now or in the past recycle more of the bunker covers.
Yes, we continue to do more bunker. Yep, bunker cover. So that's HDPE, usually your black and white. That's the same as the bale wrap is an HDPE.
Mm-hmm.
Or not bale, boat wrap. Boat wrap is HDPE. So right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how are you? I mean, what I heard Mike say is that the bunker wraps are so dirty you couldn't really do anything with them. So how are you managing that?
Ours are coming in a little cleaner than the bale wrap because of the tackifiers, the adhesives on the bale wrap, the stretch, and just the way, you know, some guys are wrapping bales so fresh, they are getting wet and sticky, and their storage had always had haylage wrapped in them, where a bunker cover being on top is limited contact. And then you saw in the original picture of our overhead, to the right-hand side there, we spread it out with a skid steer when it arrives and start sorting it and shaking it with the skid steer. Worst case scenario is we have to wash it and then let it dry again.
And you can do that. I mean, the labor is not excessive. And
it's $600. My trash fee is $119 a ton. It's costing me $600 a ton to manage.
But is there a market for it? I mean, do you get some money back?
No, I pay for the truck.
Okay.
But we started a program, we own a program, so we subsidize the program, right? We can't, it's very hard, right? You have to have the financial mechanism. So we have to subsidize this with every ton of trash, right? We are taking money out of our true trash revenues, which are supporting 4 transfer stations, recycling. Our net recycling costs cost us around $200 a ton to recycle. We don't make money on recycling, right? This is where at solid waste, to promote and move recycling and get the act of recycling move forward, we've always promoted it to be cheaper than waste. It helps save, right? It reduces waste and it saves airspace, but it has never been cheaper than waste.
Okay.
So we've bastardized a program, right? Recycling, and whether that's ag plastics or your bottle and can, the most efficient programs are your redemptions, right? Where you get your nickel or dime back. That's where there's efficiency and money made. It's not in the MRF scenario, right? Your big corporations, oftentimes they, right, are subsidizing through their MRF scenarios through brokers or different commodities, or honestly subsidizing it with their hauling and landfill networks.
Okay. And what's the market for the wrap when you get it nailed up?
Some of them had been going back to different HDPE films, and others, again, pelletized HDPE can be converted. So down south, going from Arkansas to Alabama, you can have pipe made, right? Your HDPE drainage pipes and other things. So HDPE is easier to convert back to a HD, right? A stronger, thicker wall product.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, we saw it. Are there any other questions for Greg? Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, this is Mike. You were saying that you actually wash the bunk wrap. How do you do that?
Labor in a garden hose while it's hanging from the claw bucket of the skid steer.
Wow. Thanks.
But again, that goes to the efficiency. So when you've got that much labor into it, how do we recoup our costs? And who recoups that cost? And do we socialize those costs? It's hard.
Well, what's interesting to me is you're saying, this works because you have a landfill. And if you didn't have a landfill, this wouldn't work.
No. And
is that right? I mean, $119
and I already
a
cut
ton.
everything else out that I couldn't market anymore, right? The drip line, the hoop houses, and right when they bring a iodine drum in and they didn't clean or rinse the iodine drum out, now that's trash, right? I can't really recycle that.
We are running a little bit tight on time. Are there any other quick questions for Greg? Greg, I thank you so much for answering my cold email of just saying, hey, like, we're doing this. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and kind of giving us a little history lesson as well.
Yeah, you guys are never alone, right? You're never at this alone. The communities next door to you are having the same challenge because there are no markets.
Yeah, it's yeah, like I said, today was not super optimistic in our presentations, but I think still a great learning opportunity for us. So thank you for sharing all of your expertise.
You're welcome. And again, myself and Michaela's on. She's she was my environmental compliance coordinator before for our landfill operations, and last year moved into our recycling coordinator position. So she has a farm ag background and waste background also. So we're both here ready to help. Have a lot of contacts at Cornell that some have retired, but are still engaged in, trying to revitalize the old RAP program and seeing where we can go. Our solid waste organizations here in New York State, we all work together with our other counties. So as Mike was mentioning, trying to find that decentralized model. We have a couple other counties here still trying to wrestle with some ag RAP too, and I can, hook you guys up with other brokers or markets to move materials if you're really interested.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I'll be in touch with I kind of figure this out. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so we're a little tight on time, but so Sylvia here has let us know that she does have a public comment. So Sylvia, go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm Sylvia Knight for the record. Pesticide and Poison Action Network. And I just have probably more comments than we have time for at this point, but I will share them with you online later. So I just want to explain that in my work with Vermont Pesticide and Poison Action Network, I advocate and do research for pesticide reduction and use of non-toxic alternatives as a volunteer, because I love the Creator and Earth's sacred community of life with which we are all interdependent and interconnected. And what we do to the earth, we do to ourselves. I've been looking at some scientific articles recently. There's an important statement from the Seattle conference on glyphosate and public health in March. Tells us that most people are exposed to glyphosate through the food they eat. And they had other important observations about glyphosate linked. It's linked to increased risk of non-Hodgkin lymphoma, diseases of the kidney and liver. And there's another global glyphosate study that shows that the low doses of glyphosate and glyphosate-based formulations cause malignant tumors in laboratory rats at levels currently considered safe by regulatory authorities. I'm going to go on, and let's remember that glyphosate is a systemic herbicide, so it moves through all the plant tissues, contributing toxic residues to animals and humans that consume the treated plants. Over 47,600 pounds of glyphosate were used in corn, field, and forage alone in 2024. And those residues are passed along to us in foods. Now, so scientists in Europe studied the relationship between pesticides and prostate cancer incidence and mortality. 22 pesticides showed consistent direct associations with prostate cancer, and 4 of these were associated with prostate cancer deaths. And of those 4 pesticides, trifluralin and thiamethoxam are used in Vermont. Other pesticides associated with prostate cancer include bifenthrin. So 1,065 pounds were reported used in 2024. And landicyhalothrin, over 3,000 pounds used in 2024. And Vermont is number 3 nationally in prostate cancer deaths, according to the American Cancer Society. In 2024, 690 Vermont men were diagnosed with prostate cancer, and 120 of those men died from that cancer. Another scientific article I'd like to share with you is a review of fluorinated pesticides. And this review found that some degradation products are more toxic and persistent in the environment than the parent compound. A toxic ultra short chain PFAS, trifluoroacetic acid, is a degradation product of some 60 fluorinated pesticides. TFA is contaminating and accumulating irreversibly in groundwater and surface waters. OECD defines many fluorinated pesticides as PFAS. And dietary intake is our main route of exposure to fluorinated pesticides. So these PFAS can cause damage to the endocrine system, impair reproduction, and harm our immune system. Makes us less able to fight off disease when we have PFAS in our system. The authors called for collaborative efforts among researchers, policymakers, and industry to minimize the environmental and health impacts of fluorinated pesticides. Vermont law, Act 131 of 2024 defines PFAS as a class of fluorinated organic chemicals containing at least one polyfluorinated carbon atom. This definition covers all forms, including polymers and gases. Abiding by, this definition is adopted by at least 24 states, including all New England states and New York. And abiding by a strong, consistent definition of PFAS is important and necessary for industry, regulators, and public health. And this relates also to your discussion of microplastics that are part of the PFAS story, as described in the statement by a long list of world scientists. I won't go through that right now. I want to turn, I will also be sharing a report on PFAS and pesticides. And I want to highlight 4 insecticides that have large uses in the state. For which no location was indicated in the county usage data database. No location. Bifenthrin, 767 pounds. No location indicated. Chlorpheniramine, 337 pounds. No location indicated. Fipronil, almost 3,000 pounds of fipronil were used in 2024, and the location was not indicated. Then cyhalothrin, over 3,000 pounds. Location was not indicated. This is not, we need to correct this. I don't know if there's if you have any way of correcting these data, but we must have accountability about where these substances are being used because they are PFAS pesticides. I will end it there and I'll let you know. I will send my materials to you.
Sure, yeah, and I'll get them to the members for sure.
Okay.
Because I know I didn't capture it all in a minute, so that'd be, beneficial if you send it to me as well, if you have it in writing.
No, I haven't sent them yet.
Yeah.
I will send them.
Thank you.
But it's really important that everybody in Vermont be on board with the same definition, because this has to do with spreading toxins. Vermont is trying to get rid of PFAS and spreading these toxins, the PFAS toxins around the state and pesticides is just simply dangerous. So thanks for hearing me.
Thank you.
And I thank you for your presentations today on waste. I know it's really a complex issue. And sometimes when I drive through Colchester and I see all those boats wrapped in white plastic, I think where is that plastic going to? You know, so it's, how do we get away from that? I don't know. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next meeting?
Yep, so, thank you, I'm sorry, we're a few minutes over. Our next meeting is July 28th.
July 28th?
Yep.
Did you say?
So July 28th is our next meeting. Hopefully I'm looking to just get, an update from Heather Darby on the, as we normally do about, her research this year for, Unix. We will probably try and do a little bit of plastics as well. And but as always, if you have something else, so Sean, yep, you can connect me with Casella, so maybe that can happen. And yeah, if anybody else has
where are we at on the survey
connections. Yeah, so I presented the survey I believe in March. We were at 47 or so. I haven't to be honest, I haven't checked probably in the last few weeks whether we received any more. I don't think we have.
Okay.
But we can, and then so I know that as the year progressed, I don't know when Ben and Jerry, their Caring Dairy program, so we included just those 2 questions in with theirs. I don't know when their like reporting period ends or when.
Yeah, well, let's put that on the agenda.
Yeah.
Talk about this for that.
So I'll touch base with Tom Gates on that.
Excuse me, please.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, so always, yeah, so I'll share the BMPs that Emily shared, and then we'll share public comment received.
So by then we'll know what's happening with the paraquat.
Yeah, so we'll know, yeah, kind of the end of the legislature, any updates.
Right. Well, what we're doing.
Finalized, yeah, and what we're doing.
Yeah. But I probably just put paraquat on the agenda, period.
Sure thing, we will.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Which was about, Susan mentioned Clean Farms. Is that a group that we already talked to on the board?
We did. So there is, I can point you to the presentations that we had. We had them come in a couple times. So one was like an overview of Clean Farms. So basically there's kind of like this middleman in Canada that helps organize all of the producers, so like the producers of the plastics, right? So because provincially there's different regulations of who, right, of EPR. I always get those letters mixed up. But so all of those regulations across the provinces, then Clean Farms, basically those producers say, okay, sign me up. I want to be in compliance with all of these. And then Clean Farms allows that and provides the logistics to make it all happen. So basically has the logistics of the transportation and the coordinates the markets and the collections and the baling and everything. So it kind of is like they're like that centralized part of it. So we had that kind of overview presentation. And there's one we had specifically to someone come from Clean Farms that spoke to Quebec's regulations in particular. And so it was a little more focused on like what the regulation says and then how they kind of make it work for them. So I can point you to those specific presentations that we listened to or recordings. Yeah, also.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Sorry for going 10 minutes over. Oh, go ahead.
So we have the July meeting, then September.
Yeah.
Okay.
July.
I've got to do some thinking about this, but it's either probably not July, but probably in September. And after we hear Heather's report, we need to start thinking about having a discussion about the process for the pest risk assessment for treated seed. Okay. And that's going to be a long process. So Morgan and I get together and we'll sort of propose a framework, to start having that discussion. So we need to start thinking about for the board to make some recommendations on how to do that. So
okay.
We got a couple of years, but it'll be here before we know it.
I'm glad you're having fun. All right, well, thank you guys. Hopefully you can enjoy the nice weather while it's here.
Yep.
But thank you as always.
All right, thank you guys. Appreciate your participation.
Thank you.